That's fine.
I just grabbed a student on the way.
That's great. Thing you so much. I didn't even think that they're usually just in that little,
Okay.
and it's been cleared out. That's super cool.
We don't have a handheld in here.
We don't seem to. Nope, so we'll just use this. Okay, we're going to get started. I'm Rachel Ankeny. I'm the Associate Dean of Research for the Faculty of Arts, and I want to say thanks to everyone who's come, both from the faculty and beyond. We're really pleased with the number of people who are interested, which I think shows us what a deep interest there are in the topics we're going to be discussing today. And so it's my great pleasure to welcome Jack Buckskin. Most people probably know a bit about Jack and his history, and he's going to go ahead and give us a welcome to country. Do you want that? Thank you. Will that do it? Cool.
I'm not used to having microphones. Can you hear me? No. Nah? That thing says it can hear me. Never trust technology, eh? I'll put that down. Yeah, oh, look out. Where's the sound follower? All right. So I'll start off by just explaining who I am. I'm Jack Buckskin. My real name's Vincent. Mum gave me the name Vincent, then I actually found out my name was Vincent when I started school. So everybody always knew me as Jack first, and I guess later on in life in learning Kaurna language, I adopted the name Untitled. Jack's a little bit easier for you to remember as well. Happened to a lot of our old fellas when they first said, "What's your name?" Mulawarraboka. Okay, we'll just call you Captain Jack. Okay, King John. Galapina, we'll just call you Captain Jack. So Jack's an easier name. But my family represent the Kaurna and Narungga people, so from here in the York Peninsula. And also we date back to the Wirltu people. That's going way back, you know. So, but the Buckskin last name comes from the Wirltu people over in the Streaky Bay. And I'm going to give the welcome to country today, and I'd like to also acknowledge all of our Kaurna people here and all the Aboriginal people from other areas that now gather and work and live on Kaurna country. And when I give the welcome to country, I try to teach people what it's all about in its traditional sense and how it fits into today. And in our traditional sense, we all had our own sort of territories that we come from. And my sort of territory that I look after is out in the northern suburbs. Yes, I'm from the northern suburbs. And we near Salisbury area. So what I tell people all the time, this part here, this place that we know of as Tandanya, we're also visitors too. And I like to, when I give my welcome, is to sing a song. So I'm going to sing a song, but I didn't bring any clapsticks with me today, so I'm going to need a little bit of help. So I'm going to get you involved with me, all right? You don't have to sing, but you can clap along. But I've got to tell you one rule. When I do this, you stop clapping, all right? Straight away. Don't do another one, just stop clapping. So then we can get involved in this welcome to country as well, because what the purpose of when I sing the song is it's about acknowledging our ancestors of this country, letting them know that we're here to protect this country. We're here also to acknowledge. The purpose of a welcome to country is that to let the guests know that they're welcome on our country. So no better opportunity for you all to be involved in the song as well. So then the ancestors, when they come and they see us here and they join us, when they're sitting next to you, the seats aren't empty, they're right next to you. They know that you're involved in acknowledging this part of the country as well. So I'd like to take the opportunity now to introduce myself in language as a relearner of Kaurna language, and then go into singing the song, and then you can get involved. Nganari pinchani chaka kanu ko pena kuna wacha bakani ngai tangi wota Kaurna Narungga Wirltu miung ngai tataka tina bukyanaku kumpar ya tanga yato apandi na tanga lutang tanda ganyangan ya tanga tikandi Marwe changa ngai chu bukyana por kana kumgana mini yalara ngalo wanga di mani na pun ngalo ko yatana yata ngalo tanda ganya takandi. So just to explain my name as well before we go in, it's broken up into three names. Ganya is the rock, Gulio Pina is the father of the black swan. My daughter's name's Gulio, and we derive our names from our children. So we can also, when we revitalise language, we can always revitalise connection to country through our children. Give our children a name, we also adopt a name as well. So my name started as Ganya, has moved to Gulio Pina, and I have a son who's 1.5, and my name will change again, so you can forget about Gulio Pina if you like. And then Gunawicha means I'm the third born male in our family, so family is very significant, and we also put that into our name. So I won't need the microphone for the sing the song, but I'm going to get you to join in with clapping with me, and then we'll remember the rule. That one, you stop clapping. I've got a big enough voice when I like that. Listen up a little bit. Get your heads ready. Alright, here we go. Wait. It's not like the Australian clap as well, where we get a little bit faster. Just keep same rhythm, alright? Now, I just thought I'd throw that one out there, because we get a bit excited thinking, ooh, ah, clever, rah. Not that, right? Alright, here we go.
Thanks very much to Jack. And I just want to acknowledge all the people in the room, particularly from the community. I can see familiar faces, people I know from photographs, so it's really heartening to see so many people turning out today. I want to give a few apologies from people who asked me especially to note that they weren't able to come for various reasons, illness and being out of town. That's Tammy Edwardson, Dean Fergie, and Gilad Zuckerman. And so we are taping this, just so people are aware that's what this thing running, because we've had several requests for people who want to be able to go back over this who weren't able to be here today. It's my privilege first then to introduce Veronica Arbin. Veronica is currently the director of Wirltu Yarlu, and she's going to sort of set the scene for us, as it were, talking about the importance of Aboriginal Indigenous research, and also talk about the activities and support that are provided here at the university, particularly through Wirltu Yarlu. Veronica Arbin is an assistant professor here at the university. She's also a proud Arabana woman from the west of Katithandi, or Lake Eyre, in South Australia. She spent her early years in remote Australia, particularly around Alice Springs and the Wilton-Roper River region of the Northern Territory, before moving into Darwin. She's been employed within tertiary education, and particularly within Indigenous higher education, for many years. She was the first Aboriginal director of Bachelor Institute of Indigenous Tertiary Education, and she held one of the inaugural chairs of Indigenous Knowledge Systems at Deakin University. She joined us here at the University of Adelaide in 2013. A multidisciplinary researcher, her research work has covered adult education, student support in higher education, Aboriginal women's well-being and family history and story, suicide intervention in Indigenous communities, and climate change. So she's obviously done incredibly diverse things, all very important for the communities around us. She's a member of the National Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Indigenous Higher Education Consortium, an invited member on a range of other committees, and internationally she is a member of the World Indigenous Nations Higher Education Consortium. So it's my pleasure to welcome Veronica.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I'll just open my...
Which one is it?
Where is it?
That one, maybe?
Yeah, that's it. So, all right. I'd like to also acknowledge country, and Uncle Lewis, thank you for coming. Thank you, Jack, for welcoming us to your country. As always, I acknowledge, and Jack was absolutely right, I acknowledge that my ancestors travelled with me as well, and I believe they're in this room with me. So acknowledge to my people too, from the Arabana people up near Karitanda, as we heard. Arukari to you all. As you were told, I'm talking a little bit about Wirltu Yarlu and then a little bit about research this afternoon. So what I wanted to go through was research, Aboriginal research, research with or by Aboriginal researchers, and then research defined by Aboriginal scholars, if I can find the time to do all of that this afternoon. Oops. So Wirltu Yarlu has been going now, I think, for 25 years or more. It's a really busy centre that operates across the university. We have it varies between 14 and 18 staff, with 4 of those who are academic staff, based here in Adelaide and up in Port Augusta at the moment, depending on funding. And we're involved with recruitment, an Aboriginal access program, participation, so trying to lift the participation rates and the success rates of our students. I think we run about 66% retention rate at the moment, which is not as good as some of the other universities in this country, so that's an area we've got to work on as we move through the years. And focusing on completions, getting students to actually complete their degrees is a really important outcome that we're trying to achieve right across Australia at the moment, because we get quite a big cohort coming into universities, but not such a great cohort leaving universities or following pathways onto higher degrees. We're also involved through Kelly Maxwell's work on Aboriginal employment or Indigenous employment right across the university. And we've got one of the most far-reaching there's a policy of foresight at this university. I think that is a model for every other university in Australia, where the university puts aside a budget each year to bring on Aboriginal staff in a range of jobs, and then supports the faculty or the school or the department for the next 3 years as those people find their feet on the ground in the position. We offer award and preparation programs, and our award at the moment is a part of the Bachelor of Arts and the Bachelor of Arts Advanced, so we offer a major minor within that. First time this year, and it's been very, very successful so far. And we offer the University Preparation Program for Aboriginal students. We also run seminars, supervision. I've been supervising this year, and I think Dr. Frances Wild supervised an honours student as well this year. And we apply for research grants and undertake research with colleagues overseas as well. So that last line is quite important to us, because it's through that area that we're building, I guess, the scholars and the thinkers for the future. And it's really important work for us as Aboriginal Australians. And I've got here research. Research, we all know, documents, analyses, experiments, seeks answers, and so on and so on. And I've put in there acts under academic freedom, because that's a big word in universities across Australia. And you'll understand why in a little while. Research, as we all know, must address ethics, and it's become harder and harder to get ethics approved in the Aboriginal area across Australia. We all have to fill in those forms we don't like, that require us to think through what we're trying to do in our research projects. Research is concerned with new knowledge, and research in the main in universities like this operate out of the epistemology of the disciplines, or Western knowledge. And I wanted to make the comment at the bottom there that most research today is undertaken from within the disciplines. and that's the research that's mainly being undertaken in Aboriginal communities, whether that research is by university academics or whether it's through evaluation, using evaluation models. Most of it is informed by the disciplines of the Western canon. Aboriginal research, again, follows the first 2 points, acts under academic freedom, or freedom of speech, must address ethics, but more than that today, and I work with Melissa on the climate change project, there's an Aboriginal requirement that's emerging now that you sign off on an agreement, an ethical agreement for research, particularly when you're working with Aboriginal organisations or Aboriginal communities on the ground. So ethics are becoming more complex than the form we require in university systems. Research, Aboriginal research, can include Aboriginal voice, stories, language, histories, etc. So trying to capture what Aboriginal people are saying. If there are Aboriginal researchers, it may draw on the epistemology of those Aboriginal researchers evolved. So what we're getting is, you know, I guess an attempt for an Aboriginal knowledge epistemology to emerge. And I've written down the bottom there that research undertaken from within is, research in this sense, is mainly undertaken from within the discipline, but it might link in Aboriginal knowledges or an Aboriginal knowledge position. And it's really interesting what's happening around the world in here. So you see Aboriginal researchers trying to grapple with their own knowledge, but writing from the discipline still. There's some really interesting work happening from, you know, researchers such as Smith who worked with the Kupupa Maori theory out of New Zealand back in 1999. Professor Irabana Rigney, who wrote about the Indigenous approach back in '98, who you know, wrote out of feminism into an Aboriginal position, and a whole range of others out of Canada who are doing some really interesting work. But there's also non-Aboriginal people who are writing in this space and trying to bring knowledges and disciplines together. There's some really interesting work happening in that area, but as I said, it may draw on the epistemology of those Aboriginal people, so it's still mainly coming from a Western paradigm. Research by Aboriginal researchers, again, documents and analyses and experiments and seeks answers and so on. And we're very aware of notions of academic freedom, because when we're working from an Aboriginal place, for example, I'm an Aboriginal woman, I have to be very careful about what I can write about and when I can write about certain things. Because even at my age, and I'm in my 60s, I've got elders above me. So there's certain things I can't write about without their permission. So we've got to really be careful that those notions of freedom that are formed without our involvement are not breached in our local area. Requires ethics, so we have to get Western ethics, but as well as that, we have to work on relational ethics, the ethics of our community. So we have to make sure that we've got the okay and the okay of the right people on the ground. Otherwise it won't go anywhere. And, you know, even when we are Aboriginal, we've got to make sure that the right relations are spoken to, the right people are on board with us before we can go anywhere. We too are concerned with new knowledges and new information and new answers. And we work within the voice. So we don't work with voice, but we work within voice. Stories, language, histories, and so on. And I think we've got a couple of people here who are trying to come from that place within their own history or within their own voice. And you might hear a little bit more about that later. But there's some really interesting work again happening out of Canada. Leanne Simpson is a writer who talks about land pedagogy. And it's really interesting work on education. We may use in this this area, we may use Western methods. So we may draw, a survey or a way of gathering information from a community, so a forum, a questionnaire. We may use those types of methods, but we're really careful about not dragging with it some of the assumptions of the Western knowledge system, if that's the way to put it. And it operates very strongly out of an Aboriginal knowledge's position. So research, when you read the Aboriginal theory that's happening around the world, research is very much increasingly occurring from within an Aboriginal epistemology. And I want to just talk briefly about that before we close. So, and here's a few quotes from people. And it's research defined by us, or by Aboriginal people, to find our own answers to the complex problems we have today. And it's, as I said, it's fascinating reading some of the work that's starting to come out across the world. The late Mr. West from Australia here wrote back in 2000, actually it was before 2000 because we lost him and his PhD was finished posthumously by a colleague. But he wrote, when we think about Aboriginal knowledge, it's about the totality. And you can imagine that, before 36, when non-Aboriginal people came to South Australia, it was everything. The way Uncle Lewis's family thought was in the Ghana way. The way my people thought was in the Arabana way. So it was about everything. And to some effect, and we all have suffered by the colonial process, including myself, we still think to some degree from that space. When I wrote my PhD and then published my book, I said that at the core of my knowledge system as an Arabana, and what I found was that many other people who were Indigenous around the world talk from that place of relatedness first. And it was a relatedness not just with people, but with other things. So you heard Jack speak of the black swan. In my country, one of my names is Tantani, which is the cormorant or the water bird. So that marks how I relate to water. So relatedness concerns the unity of us with nature and with all around us. So when you think about research in that context, we've got to think about how will it impact my family, the cormorant, or how will it impact my family, the tea tree bush. So they're really important aspects of, I think, an Aboriginal knowledge position. Wilson from Canada, a First Nation man, then wrote about, or around about the same time, it was really interesting, around 2008 there was about 5 or 6 of us around the world who published books who talked about very similar things, but we didn't really know each other. It's fascinating when you find that. And Wilson speaks about relational accountability. So once you're related to people and other things in your world, you have to be accountable to them. And of course that's where you hear Aboriginal people speak of respect many, many times, and that's where that comes, that's where that requirement comes from. Deloria, out of the United States, spoke about events, and Jack said before, our family are here, our spirits are with us. And Deloria wrote about that events are about the spiritual aspect too. So there's the everyday aspect, the physical aspect that we can see of knowledge, but in our knowledge, it's about the unseen, the spiritual aspect that is there always. So it's about the temporal and the metaphysical, if that's the word to use. And in the West, you have to go right back to probably the Sophites or the writers back then to find those two aspects together, because they were, in the Western theory, spirituality in the sense that we know it was divorced in some way from the theory. Martin and my work speak about the cyclical process of knowledge, and that's very important to us, and we have to take information back, check that it's right, make sure that we're not speaking out of turn, that we can damage our families. It goes around and around, and in fact our whole worldview is set up in a cycle. And what we're now finding, and Kaheti wrote about this. Kaheti is a Pueblo from New Mexico. He wrote about this way back in 2000, but what we're finding around the world now, as more and more Aboriginal thinkers are writing and putting their information out there, that we're getting to a place where, and I hope the West can come with us, where we can have multiple truths. We just don't have one grand narrative. And it's that, I think, is the really important work that Aboriginal knowledge is bringing to us. That multiple truths is important, and even though as Aboriginal people right around the world we have some similarities, as you can see from those quotes, but at the same time we have differences, and we can recognise those multiple truths. And Kaheti says, we talk into being, or dance into being, or sing into being, or write into being our knowledge through our individual and collective consciousness of our community. So for us and for me as an Aboriginal person, it's really important to do research in a way that actually goes back to our communities and cycles through that. I'm not taking knowledge out, I'm actually growing it with my people. So that's kind of the basis of, the key points, I guess, of an Aboriginal knowledge system. And it's very different from the first one particularly, which comes out of the Western knowledge paradigm, has some similarity to where you can work across knowledge systems as research. And when we did the climate change project, we had geographers, myself as an adult educator, Aboriginal knowledge person, Professor Rigney, an anthropologist and scientist. So it was a really interesting multi-knowledge project that we had when we worked on that, Melissa and I, back a couple of years ago. So, with Aboriginal knowledge, of course, that one page I showed you is just the really important factors. There's much, much more to it. And each day I learn something more about myself. And I think that's the important aspect for us as Aboriginal people working from our own knowledge position, is that we can actually see ourselves in it. We can find ourselves in it. We can know ourselves in it. Whereas up until now, or up until fairly recently, as Aboriginal thinkers right across the world, we kind of got separated from that knowledge by the education systems that we've had to go through. So thank you. Oh, sorry.
So thank you very much, Veronica. Hopefully we'll have some time to get back to, thank you, these various points, I think, as we make our way through the various proceedings today. The next thing that I wanted to do was invite up Sebastian Lowry. Sebastian's family are Palawa from the sorry, I knew I wasn't going to be able to do this. Pamirunir Mob in Tasmania, and Sebastian's the Indigenous Engagement Project Officer here at the university, assisting with a whole variety of projects, but particularly in conjunction with the implementation of the Tarkani Turka Future Learning Strategy. And there's been a fantastic initiative that's been ongoing over this last year or so, I guess it is, to set up a research map. And I thought it would be good for Sebastian to come up, tell us a bit, and show us what's been going on. Another part of it would be that hopefully Sebastian will encourage people to join in, but he can tell you about that. So Sebastian, thank you.
Sorry, I just need to reboot the microphone.
You need to reboot
Yep.
it. Yep.
So it'll take like 30 seconds.
Okay. You want to go back? Either way, your choice. Okay, thank you.
Oh, hello.
There you go.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name's Sebastian, and I apologise now if I shame job myself out. Normally, there's a dean here doing that, but as you know, we don't have one at the moment. So thank you, Jack and Uncle Lewis, for welcoming us to country, and also thank you, Veronica, for talking to Aboriginal research knowledges and methodologies that we hope to grow within the university. Which way I'm from, my mother is German. She's from the Dresden area in Germany. And my father's Palawa. The matriarchs of my family, Plin Perenia, Waya Lubria, Nimirana, Waya Tulawida, and Polinembera were abducted from the northeast of Tasmania in Marinera country by British sealers. Smith, Maynard, Thomas and Everett and Mansell during Tasmania's colonisation period in the 1800s. And these are the names that are weaved through my family history and define me as a Palawa person. I've been tentative over the years in speaking of my Aboriginal culture, as I'm usually met with disbelief, distrust and statements. Only recently, aren't your mob extinct? Didn't they die years ago? Looking over my history through documents like Tyndale's Growth of People, Formation and Development of a Hybrid Aboriginal and White Stock on the islands of Bass Strait Island doesn't give me much courage. What is lacking in the few texts that are at my disposal is the Aboriginal voice, the voice of my mob, which is slowly changing thanks to Michael Mansell, Ian Anderson, Arnie Ida and many others before me. In reflecting on this, my mainland cousins don't need to be in this place, and this is why we need to support Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders to speak their voice, their history, and to be respected in doing this. My role as project officer is to assist with the implementation of Takari Tirka and the associated projects. The Takari Tirka is the university's Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander education and engagement strategy that addresses key areas to strengthen our participation in higher education and research. To address the research recommendations in the Takari Tirka, the Indigenous Research Working Group was formed and chaired by Rob Saint to produce a report on how the university can support Indigenous researchers and research, which is recently tabled at the Vice-Chancellor's Executive. The report defined the university's responsibilities and provided institutional support for initiatives as outlined by Professor Arben over at Wirltu Yarlu today. The implementation of this report commenced this year and it will be continued to be steered by Professor Julie Owens. Today I'm here to talk about one of the initiatives from this report, the Indigenous Research website. There is response to the initiative to develop clear expectations, roles and responsibilities regarding Indigenous research by the development of a university website dedicated to Indigenous research, which is what we have here in front of us. It's still in draft mode and it's still open for discussion and information gathering. So as you can see, the first page does reflect on why we have come to build this webpage, and our lovely Rebecca Richards is flying the banner once again. To display the research that our university is conducting, we have created a research map to identify where research has been or is being conducted within Aboriginal Australia. The idea came out of a Faculty of Arts Aboriginal seminar that was chaired by Dr. Stephanie Hester, who's no longer with us at the moment. And as you can see, this is the true Australia that we need to start looking at when we are researching with Aboriginal people and recognising the country they're from. Just an example, you click on one of the pinpoints and it defines the project and links you off to the particular project that we have. So Arabana, the project that Veronica touched on before, we can easily link off there. With this particular site, we are able to actually define by faculty who's doing research. And it is encouraging to see that we do have quite a range across the university in our faculties that are doing research in communities. Having this map isn't to open up communities for people to go out and research and go, oh, we'll go there, no one's been there before. It's certainly not the intent at all. It's to provide some accountability for the university to say, and be proud, yes, we are researching. To bring knowledge to that community, yes, there are people that are doing work in our community and they can engage with them again in the future. And also to help us network as well. So if we do want to work with Arabana people, we know who in the university has met with them and knows their protocols, which are also different across Australia. In our researchers tab, I've collated the centres of Indigenous research that we have as a university, as well as detailing the research strength by faculty, those that don't necessarily fall into a research centre of such, that are writing and, I do hope, supporting Aboriginal voices in the communities to create better outcomes for all. The process of gaining this information came about through the research logging form, which will continue to stay on the actual web page. Professor Rob Saint and the Associate Dean's Research sent it out throughout the university, as well as appearing in staff news to get this information. We've kept it quite simplistic, wherein when the researcher sees it, they don't think they've got too much to fill in amongst all of their other paperwork. And it does allow them to actually add in extra details of which community they're working in, or alternatively, if they are working for the broader Aboriginal objective. Furthermore, recently I did a review of Aurora through a basic search, Aboriginal and Indigenous, and I pulled over 130 people in the university that have put their name on Aboriginal research. And I sent out an email to them who weren't on this website, and I only got a response from 3 of them. I know I'm not really high up in the university or the Vice-Chancellor, but it's quite disheartening that there is such a wide range of people in the university that will put their name on a paper, put their name on a research grant, but don't have the strength to stand up and saying, yes, I am writing about Aboriginal people. So I've got that list and I do intend to follow it up. I'll get my finger out like some people I know and give them the shape, because it's quite shameful. I understand why my mob haven't jumped on and said put my name on it, because I haven't sat down with them and spoke to them, because this website is about the university being proud and showing everyone, yes, we are working and we are trying to enable Aboriginal communities. So hopefully after today we'll get that chance to sit down and see how they want their voices put in there. But I just wanted to go over that example, because I know there's plenty of researchers out there, but I will not put their name on that site without their permission, because that's just wrong. It's not what we do. Then we've developed some research support. So aside from where we are researching, it does provide some pathway opportunities for Aboriginal postgraduate students, as well as those that are wanting to work in the Aboriginal space. So it goes through the research ethics firstly, because that's the first thing that we should really consider when wanting to research in the Aboriginal space. Highlights the research seminar series that Wirltu Yarlu runs, as well as the HDR network and other supports that are coming out of Wirltu Yarlu. Furthermore, we are highlighting the fact that the rest of the university is here to support Aboriginal students as well. It's not just Wirltu's responsibility, it's not just Indigenous education's, it's the university's responsibility. And also we do have more information around research librarians and also other external support opportunities to get our voices out there. In this tab as well, through the logging form, I have asked people to send through any networks that they know of or any resources that would be useful, which I have slowly started detailing in here. The point I wanted to make with these resources is that all of these are some way Aboriginal led or Aboriginal engaged. In 2015, we don't need guides set out by other people. It's our mob that should be dictating how research is conducted and how it's carried out within the university. And particularly for arts, we've got some great work by Terry Jenkins that has done some work, new tracks, around Indigenous knowledge and cultural expression and the Australian system, as well as a wealth of resources on the Council for the Arts that Terry also worked on, a Torres Strait Islander woman, that details how you interact, copyright, intellectual property issues around using Aboriginal artwork. So that's the website. Hopefully it paints a better picture than the mail outs that have come out or the staff news, and I hope that you can get the word out. As I have secured a date with Professor Brooks as well as Professor Owens to launch the site in November, to discuss the site initiatives and to reaffirm the university's commitment to Indigenous research. Save the dates will be out shortly, along with an expected program. So thank you, and hope I didn't shame myself out too much there. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Sebastian. And I encourage everyone who hasn't yet put details up, put your details up. Sebastian's not as scary as he just seemed. He's perfectly open to helping you craft what you want to have up there. Okay, our next sort of segment in the program are a series of speakers from within the Faculty of Arts who are going to speak about their own work. And we tried to invite kind of people from a diversity of disciplines, diversity of stages of career, diversity of perspectives. And they're each going to give quite short talks. And then in our third segment, we'll have a facilitated panel discussion. I'm going to just very briefly introduce people because I also asked them to introduce themselves a bit at the beginning of their talks. Our first speaker, I think he'll be glad that he's first, is Christopher Davis, who's finishing up his PhD in Anthropology and Development Studies. And over to you. This or handheld? You'll be fine. Okay.
Yep.
And do you have PowerPoint? No.
Okay.
Should I help?
No, it's fine.
Which one is it?
Do I plug this in?
Let's cut this one. Can I just, you don't want to ruin your jumper, but that's probably the easiest way.
Okay.
That'll do.
Yep.
And slip that in your pocket.
That's
and then,
fine.
do you
Where's
see yours? Up across the top there somewhere.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Thanks.
How do I get the names?
And then, just right there.
This one?
Yeah. No, that one.
No one.
You're good.
Okay. Welcome everybody, and I'd like to also acknowledge the Kaurna people, as the custodians of the land we presently holding this seminar on. Also I'd like to thank Jack for his welcome to country, and acknowledge Kaurna Elder Uncle Lewis O'Brien and other Kaurna people here who I haven't met yet. This is the research topic for my thesis, and I conducted this in the north of Australia, and these are the places that I've been to, all the ones except Borroloola, which is in the middle there, because there were difficulties in trying to get access and with communities there, because there was a lot of tensions going on at the time, which I won't go into a lot of details of because I don't have much time standing up here. But there's quite a lot of distance between the three other sites, Mossman, Tennant Creek and Nayu. Anyway, I just put this map up here just to give you that sort of, and I couldn't find a language map, strange as it seemed when I was putting this together earlier on. But I'll start here with me. These are my three totems. This is who I am. We have no particular order. We have this mountain here, Munjal Dimbi in our language, called the Yarlu language. I should go back, should just mention I'm from the Yarlu people, North Queensland, just north of Cairns on the east coast of Australia. And this mountain is a sacred mountain for us. It's also part of my great-grandmother's estate. And so I was given this name at birth, and it has these, when I went when I went on my journey to learn more about it, I was through my elders and other family relations, I came to understand that it had these three meanings. And they have particular importance to me for different reasons, which we'll go on to. But I'm feeling so nervous standing here right now. I used to be a lecturer and spoken to groups just as large as this, but for some reason today I feel that way. Anyway, from those three totems, I've in trying to, I think the problem is I'm trying to compress a lot of knowledge into a few short words, and we just can't do that, but I'll do my best. So from those three totems, I, through my journey of learning and understanding who I am, I've come to understand that at the centre of it is ethical relationships, and they're all interconnected to all these other truths. As Professor Arbin mentioned earlier, that Kahete talks about multiple truths, and each one of these are the truths for me. Those totems represent these truths, and in terms of how I behave and in my relationships with my own family and others, and I take these with me on my my day-to-day connecting with people. So the things that these are the truths that form and shape my behaviours as an Aboriginal man, and it's a lot different to the sort of profile that's out there in the media. As we know, is fairly negative and consists of a whole range of labels that don't really give us much credibility. But I've in my journey in understanding this about myself and these truths, I've connected with other people, and I found there's a lot of Aboriginal men out there who have similar truths to their identities, and you'll see this. I'll put this one up here because this particular diagram is very similar, and this comes from consultations with Indigenous people around Australia that the NHMRC and ABCC did, and so you can see there's similar truths there, and that's what we're saying, is that our existence is about ethical relationships, or certainly within Yarlu epistemology, and I found that in my field interviews that in Tennant Creek, Nayu and Mossman, that the men were saying the same things. They were expressing the same truths. In amongst all the other debris that comes in their lives in terms of violence and alcohol and drugs and jail time and that, there's separating and weakening all of those layers of those sort of negative labels. These truths were able to be seen, and I found in my research as I was working with the men that we were able to sort of bring those forth, their voices forth on those truths. And oops, I've gone too far. This is how do I go back? There. Okay. I just wanted to I don't know how much time I've got left, but a couple of minutes. Just wanted to go back to me. I like talking about me a bit. The trees, when I was having those conversations and meeting with my family members, and particularly elders who could tell me more about this, we have a way of educating where our elders say one word or a couple of words, and you're left thinking, what's going on? What does that mean? But that's the start of your journey. They're just pointing you in that direction. I like the way Uncle Lewis talks about this in the way of thinking twice, thinking with both sides of your brain, both hemispheres. Such a really sums it up for me in terms of how I went about this. They gave me this name, and then they said, oh, that's the grass tree. And I asked one of my aunties about that, what does that mean? She said, well, you're going to have to find that out. And that's what I did. The same with the mountain, Mount Munjaldimby. It's actually a granite rock full of rainforest covering it. Up in the, it's on the edge of the Daintree National Park. And I did the same thing with that too, with that particular part of my life, of what that means. Same with the parrotfish. That's a species of wrasse, very good eating fish, very nice table fish. I can't eat it now that I know that is my totem. But it's found in wide distribution across northern Australia, parts of the Caribbean and Africa, and in other parts of the Indian Ocean. But it has a strong jaw. And when one of my uncles told me about that, he said the same thing as my auntie. You'll have to find out for yourself how that relates to you. You were given this name, and how do you relate to it? And I suppose that's where the advocacy, the truth of advocacy comes into it, because to be an advocate, you've got to have a strong jaw. You need to be speaking up. You need to talk. And same with the grass trees, have multiple uses. The stems you see are used for spears. In the rainforest, we use short spears, more for thrusting and close fighting when it's needed to be. The flower at the top there has got a resin that's harder than glue. It's quite strong, it binds things, fixes the flint to the end of the shaft. And it's used for other areas in our uses for this plant. The leaves itself are used to make bags, dilly bags to carry fruit in and other small animal parts. So it has multiple uses, and it's a nurturing role, and it's a provider. And the mountain itself is when you look at it, and if you resonate with it, you will start to feel a sense of security and solid and protection there. It's a rock in your life, reliable and dependable. And so tracking back to, or tracking forward somewhere, these are the truths in my life and how I use these to form and shape my behaviours as I connect with people. And I'm well aware that there are still a lot of tough issues out there to deal with, and certainly I don't have rose-coloured glasses when I'm looking at these things, when I'm relating to these truths. but I don't discard them. I carry them with me and I walk with them and I connect with other people through them. Because you've got to start somewhere and you can't focus on the stuff that's going to drag you down and hold you back. These are the things that sit at the core of my identity, and these are the truths that make up me. And so it's the importance about the ethical relationships is that it is truths. Ethical relationships are truths, and these are they're not just as Professor Arben's slide indicated. There are multiple truths. There's not just one. There's not one. I think the word you used was grand narrative. You know, there's not one grand narrative for us. It's a whole range of different. For some people, I'm dependable, and others, I'm a nurturer. You know, so that's pretty much concludes my presentation. So thank you very much, everybody.
Can I have a picture? Thank you. Our next presenters then, I hope, are, I'm looking around to make sure they're here, Paul Monahan and Clayton Cruz from the Mobile Language Team, please, are going to come up and speak a bit about that ongoing project. And again, I'll let Paul introduce himself and Clayton when they get down here. Do you want this one? Yeah, cool. Thanks. Yeah.
Thanks.
Will that do?
Yeah, just quickly. What have we done wrong there? Well. What? Do I? Well, it's a good start. There we go. Okay, so Paul Monahan, I'm at the Mobile Language Team. Clayton Cruz, who is my colleague, will speak. We're going 50-50 or 5 and 5, as the case may be. I'll just start off just briefly introducing you to some of our structures in the Mobile Language Team. We've been around for 6 years now at the university. And we've just received another 4 years of funding, so we're going ahead. And I just wanted to introduce you to a couple of things that are in relation to knowledge and the way that we handle our research, to the extent that we do research. And then I'll hand over to Clay, who can talk from his perspective as well. I just wanted to say that just looking at the presentation or listening to the presentation so far, and is basically, with our work, we are like an evolving fusion of a bit of technical knowledge and also everyday practice in communities as well. And what we try and do is go out into communities and develop projects that address needs within the community around language and culture. The technical linguistic knowledge comes into play, but we really need to adapt it to what's happening in the communities. And with the presentation we've seen today, you get an idea of the different ways that knowledge works and the different values around research in communities. So we need to incorporate that in. We're always conscious of trying to work in an ethical manner, following a set of protocols that we've developed. Structurally, there's a small team of language workers and researchers. Above us, we have an Aboriginal advisory committee, which in many ways decides on some of the main issues on the operation of the project, making sure that if there's new projects that we want to try and do that might be slightly contentious or need some advice and some direction, some input in that way, then those ideas are taken to those discussions and then we move forward with those. I'm going to try and show you something. I haven't tested this. Here we go. I just want to show you a couple of things that we've been doing, if this works.
Once upon a time, in the dream time, there were Gaija Gudara. One was a Maralya, and the other was a Gardni. The Maralya was very curious, and each day he wanted to learn more. He would venture further and further away from Yurla. His Yaga would follow. One day they went too far and found themselves lost. They came across a gullah and sat down and cried. Their Mulgal Yarana could be heard all over the Yarda. Out of the Wirra there came a Bulga. Why are you Ngali Wawudu? Asked the Bulga. With solemn voices they both cried, We're lost. It's okay, we'll rest tonight and go tomorrow, said the Bulga. He made a gadla to keep them Bola. Early next Malduru, the Bulga led them back, through the Wirra, following their tracks until they reached their Yurla. Their Ngami and Bubby were happy to see them. As he left, the Bulga said, Learning is good, but take an elder with you to guide your journey.
So with this little story, created by Anita Taylor, who's an Aboriginal woman who lives in Whyalla, training to be a teacher, and working with the Bangla language there. She asked us for training, and we went in and developed a story with a small team of media people, but using, I think there were about 30 people around in the house that day. Mainly the kids did all the paintings, and it was Anita's story, and we just tried to incorporate a bit of Bangla language into it as a first step. So with this type of project, we're looking at ways of operating in a little family network rather than, say, trying to do a whole town or a whole region in a particular language. We're looking at the dynamics within that family and how we can set up learning opportunities for the young people to try and learn some of this heritage language. Just briefly, probably last spoken, maybe 1960s or 70s. The last speakers are around recorded, that is, in 1966, I think. And there's currently a program with Professor Zuckerman in linguistics to revive the Bangla language, and this is part of what we're doing as well. And I just wanted to give you that example of what the sort of work we've been doing. So in a sense, this is a research forum, but we're very much in terms of practical work as well. Some of us will try and write up academic journals, and we try to develop new methods that will trial ways of getting language back and working within communities, and that's all I wanted to say at this stage. I'm going to hand over to Clayton, who's on the team as well. And before you do that, I want to apologise. I forgot to acknowledge the Ghana traditional custodians here and Uncle Lewis. I'm sorry about that. In my confusion to get the computer working, I skipped ahead, so please accept my apologies for that.
Can everybody hear me okay? Oh, that's good. So I just wanted to apologise firstly. It's been a busy weekend screaming at my kids. the TV as well because the footy finals are on. As an Adelaide person from the Northern Flinders Ranges, just wanted to thank Ghana for having me. I moved down here when I was 8 years old, so my mother could study, and she did that, and she's doing a PhD at the moment. So she's informed me in a lot of ways, I guess, how to operate in the Western world, which I'm grateful for. I want to thank Jack, obviously, who was here before as well, and other Aboriginal people here and also non-Aboriginal people. So my name's Clayton Cruz. I've been involved with the MLT now for nearly 3 years, and I have to say, I think the first thing that I should say is that it's taken me that time to get to a position now within the Adelaide community that I feel that I've built those relationships. So now that's the platform to go on now with this next funding arrangement to really achieve things, because that is how you achieve things in the Aboriginal community, especially if you're a non-Aboriginal person. I wouldn't know that obviously, but that's how I would direct someone working with an Aboriginal community, is to really build those relationships first, and whatever you're going to do goes back into the community. Once you've done what you need to do, don't take that away and leave. So I've never really worked for an Aboriginal organisation before. I have worked in education for about 10 years, the education system, and so that has been working with Aboriginal students. But when we think about working with Aboriginal students in that sense, it's really working within DECD, Western Education Framework. And so I guess while this is a research forum, I guess I wanted to talk a bit about relevance and how most, I would have to say, majority of researchers are going to have interaction with Aboriginal people. Aboriginal communities are going to be non-Indigenous. So how can they, like I said, I'm not an expert. I'm not going to tell people. I don't have a conclusive set of parameters and framework to work within. But I kind of assume that we're in this position now talking about research methodologies and how to work with Aboriginal communities, because in the 60s and the 70s, and when education started and Aboriginal people were starting to be included in the education system, those kind of things weren't taught. So I'm a big believer in education. I think that if we how do I say that? 60 years ago, 50 years ago, if we were doing what we're doing now, the need for things like this may not be so great. And so I guess relevance in that sense, particularly in an education sense, I think there needs to be spaces for Aboriginal kids to be able to sit in the classroom and locate themselves and go, yeah, I feel safe in this space, and take ownership of that. And that's also recognised by people who are non-Indigenous, kind of facilitating that space as well. It's probably gone off the topic a bit, but that was the first thing that came to my mind, and I wanted to share that. Having never worked for an Aboriginal organisation before, and we are working towards a level of Aboriginal control with the mobile language team, which is great, and taking advice on my own projects, and for the rest of the team, taking advice from our advisory committee, being an all Aboriginal advisory committee. It's really heartening for me as a young Aboriginal person to know that the people in those positions are helping me make those decisions. And so, yeah, I mean, like I said, it's really taking me, and this is as a Adnyamatna person, so I do 90% of my work with the Adnyamatna community. So there's Adnyamatna people here in Adelaide, Port Augusta, up in the Northern Flinders as well. And so I work with each of those locations and the different people in those locations to do my work. There's issues within the Adnyamatna community as well that dictate those relationships as well, in terms of orthographies and spellings of, orthographies is spellings, orthographies and familial connections, I guess. And as an Adnyamatna person, that's something that I've had to negotiate, and it's taken me to that level now to get to that time to get to the point now where I feel like I can really take those relationships to the next level and really kind of start churning out some good resources and I guess the mobile language team is a good example for people to see how we do things. Certainly Paul's been in that position for a lot, in that organisation for a lot longer than I have, and I really respect the way Paul goes about it. We have some good football conversations as well, but I probably shouldn't have mentioned that. Yeah, I just wanted to show you one thing, and then that's pretty much it for me. This is a camp that I went to earlier this year, up at Ikra, which is also known as Wilpena Pound, and I took my son up there, and that's part of an MLT process as well in terms of family language planning. So I took my son up there, and we spent a couple of nights of the weekend sitting down with other Adnyamatna men and boys, and talking about culture. And having that space as men to kind of really connect with each other, and I guess talk about things that we wouldn't necessarily talk about if we're sitting down watching the West Coast flog